Welcome to this time of worship tonight as we remember the darkest and ugliest chapter of Jesus' life. We call it Good Friday, and in many churches and on many occasions we might recall the actual words of Jesus as he died on the cross. Other times we might recall the movements of the various betrayals and trial and suffering and death and burial of Jesus. Tonight we consider whether we can view this dark episode as merely historical, something in the past, or if it continues to reverberate in lives such as ours. All of the stories that you will hear tonight are true and factual. None of them are autobiographical to the people who are representing them. Once we begin our service, there will be no more announcements other than toward the end to invite you to sing where you are seated the two stanzas of the hymn that you have on the copy in your hand now on the white sheet of paper. And at the very end of the service, when you see the choir and the cast of characters departing in silence, we ask you also to leave in silence, reflecting on what might be happening in your own hearts this night. On the 26th chapter of Matthew, verses 17 through 22. On the first day of the festival of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Where do you want us to make preparations for you to eat the Passover?" And he replied, "Go into the city of a certain man and tell him, 'The teacher says, my appointed time is near. I'm going to celebrate the Passover with my disciples at your house.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them and prepared the Passover. When evening came, Jesus was reclining at the table with the 12. And while they were eating, he said, "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." They were very sad and began to say to him one after the other, "Surely you don't mean me, Lord."
Why, that was 2,000 years ago, and the betrayer was Judas Iscariot. I am a loyal member of this church. I have been faithful to the core. Surely you don't mean me, Lord?
I was named Volunteer of the Year in my county. I'm known for making sure that things get done. Surely you don't mean me, Lord?
I have been a teacher for 30 years. I've been responsible for hundreds and hundreds of children who still come back to me and say what a difference I have made in their lives. Surely you don't mean me, Lord?
And I'm an elder in the church. I'm on the building committee. I tithe. I don't talk about others. I don't miss services. I go to every funeral, and I'm the preacher's best friend. Surely you don't mean me, Lord.
I love this congregation, and I love our church. We get along so well together, and everyone helps everyone else if they have a need. We get together for potluck dinners, and we eat so much food, and we just laugh so hard our bellies ache. In worship, you can depend on certain people being in the choir and certain people sitting in their pews. Sometimes certain people miss church, and certain people never miss a Sunday. We can depend on one another. We get meals when we want them and prayers when we need them. If we're in the hospital, you can believe that somebody from the church is going to show up. If our child is baptized, it's here in this sanctuary. And if we die, we come to this sanctuary and our good friends gather around us. Every moment of our lives is held in this sanctuary. So why? Why did they have to come here? You know who I'm talking about. Jim and Josephine were so, and I'm trying to say this in a Christian way, they're different. Jim bursts out with platitudes and theology as if he knows it all, and believe me, he doesn't. You can't have a discussion with him without him bursting into the conversation and taking over. Our times together have been tainted by this man, and I don't know what to do with that. And Josephine joined our ladies group, and she was so quiet that she made us feel uncomfortable. We tried to get her to say something, but she wouldn't do anything, and she wears this strong perfume, and we gag every time she comes into the room. They're just so different. I have to say it, and I know it's a cliche, but they're not one of us. They don't understand our church or our town or our county, and I have no idea where they're from, but it's not from here. But when I'm alone, when I'm in prayer, I find myself in deep sorrow over my thoughts. Jim and Josephine have very few friends in this church, and they have very few friends outside of it. Who knows their story? I don't. I haven't taken the time to find out who they are. But I know that the God who gave his son for me also gave him for Jim and for Josephine, and I am shaken to the core over my judgment of them. Everything I have been taught has flown out the window. Surely it's not me, Lord.
Everybody around here knows me. I'm generous with my time. I build houses for those who need them. I feed those who are hungry and just gather money for good causes. Volunteer of the Year, that's me. Just got that award the other day, and it's the second time I've received it. I'm good at working with people who are on the boundaries. People who are outside my world are okay with me. I don't have a prejudiced bone in my body. I'm happy to say that I truly accept everyone as they are. You can ask anyone in these parts and they'll tell you, I'm a good man, and I'm proud of it. But my son called tonight. He'd been drinking again. I could tell. I gave him everything. His home was a loving home with two loving parents and a fine example for a father. He had it all. What on earth is he thinking? I tried my best to get that boy to walk a straight line, to get a lasting job, to get a lasting relationship. Settle down, get your own home. But he still comes crawling back to us, but only when he needs money. I'm sorry. The truth, my son was the light of my life. Every day I thought the world held special promises for him. And when he made bad grades, when he didn't make the team, I know in my heart that I could have been softer, more kind, more accepting, and I find myself standing before the cross of Jesus Christ as much a sinner as anyone else. I think of the night when Jesus was betrayed and prayed to his Father, "Take this cup from me," and I am humbled to the floor. Surely it is not me, Lord.
Years I was a teacher. For 30 years, I molded young lives and helped them to become responsible adults. Best teacher that the school ever had, because I stayed late after and helped kids who needed it and arrived early to do the same. I hardly ever had my own lunch because I was doing something to prepare for the classroom. And the kids loved me. They still come back and praise the way that I changed their lives and sent them into a positive direction. Why, I have students who are major leaders in their community and even in their state. I have students who own their own businesses and students who spend their lives working for the good of others. Preachers, CEOs, entertainers, engineers, computer software designers, you name it, and I have sent those people on their way. I made a major difference in their lives. Today I was told about Missy. Oh, Missy. If I told her to meet me before school, she didn't show. If I tried to be kind to her, she threw it back in my face. She would sit in the classroom and her look was so poisonous, slumped there in defiance. I can see her now and it makes my blood boil. I'd try to handle it, but usually just send her on down to the office. And then she'd start talking badly about me with the other students. And there was one year when all the students turned against me. That was a horrible year. I started hearing terrible things, made up things about me. It was the most difficult year I had ever had, and I cannot let the pain of that go. Oh well. Years ago, water under the bridge. Missy is in prison. She dropped out of school, got in deeper in drugs, and finally, we all knew where she would end up. But you can't save them all, you know? A teacher's got to know that. Missy was a horrible human being. She just was. Well, she was, I don't know. But when I see Christ on the cross, his suffering, he went the distance. Could I have gone the distance for Missy? Did I not suffer enough? She made everybody else suffer. Or did I shield my suffering for my own well-being? I picture her in a cell by herself, lonely and scared and angry, closed off from the rest of us, separate from the rest of us. Isn't that what she wanted? All the glorious times in my teaching, and this is all I can think about. It haunts me. Surely you don't mean me, Lord.
Suffering Savior, dying Lord.
I'm an elder in my church. In fact, they like me so much that when I rotate off, they wait a short time, then they recruit me back again. But I'm good at it. And I told you I'm on the building committee. Wow, that's a lot of work. But it's worth it. We got all those renovations done on time and on budget and paid for in no time. And tithe, oh, Lord, yes, I tithe. Even when there was no money, we gave our 10%. You know what people like best about me? I don't say bad things about anyone. It's just not my style. Every one of us here is a child of God, and nobody deserves a bashing. So when someone starts talking mean about another, I just politely walk away. I don't miss services either. They know if I'm not there, I'm darn sick. And I go to every service at this church, every wedding, every celebration, every funeral. And the preacher here, he considers me his best friend. I consider him my best friend. I'm proud to be an elder in this church. Well, except for one time. There was this woman, brash young thing, and she was an elder too. Her views and mine, well, you can say they just didn't match up. I'm from a long tradition of Presbyterians, and I know what we believe. She was way out of line. She made every single person in the session feel very uncomfortable. I couldn't stand to hear her talk. And it wasn't for the sake of the church. She just liked to present an opposing point of view to get a rise out of us. I swear, if we said ice was cold, she'd say it was hot. She's the single most irritating person I have ever met. But when I came home, my wife asked me how the meeting went. Now, I know I'm not supposed to discuss these session matters with her, but you know how it goes. And I told her what went on. Then she had the audacity to ask me, well, what do you think of her ideas? You mean the woman who totally messed up our session meeting? I shouted back. Yes, she said in her quiet voice. And my answer? I think she's wrong. Her ideas aren't Presbyterian. Why, they aren't even biblical. Yes, she says back to me. But did you listen to what she said? Well, I looked at my wife like she was crazy. And then I thought, no, I hadn't really listened to her. In fact, I'd encourage the rest of the group not to listen either. Well, the reality of that information took me by surprise. My Lord Jesus Christ walked through the valley of tears so all of us could be heard and understood and loved. I really blew it. Surely you can't mean me, Lord.
poor people, good people, pillars of society, contributors to their communities and churches, but steeped in guilt, recognizing how they have brought pain to others, and yes, even to Jesus.
I've been so terrible to Jim and Josephine.
I've made too many mistakes with my son. He's so far gone down, there's no hope.
I can't get Missy out of my mind. And how I missed such an opportunity that maybe could have changed the course of her life.
How could I have been so sure of myself and holier than thou, and in a session meeting with a fellow elder?
Jesus is talking about me.
No, he's talking about me.
I am the guilty one.
I've been blind to how I have failed my Lord.
As we sit before the cross tonight, dare we add our own voices and our own confessions? Dare we lift our voices in song even now by singing together the hymn, Ah, Holy Jesus, the first two stanzas. Can there be forgiveness? Is there hope when we are the guilty? Are we destined to live in shame and remorse with darkness and death and crucifixion being the final word? Or can the stories take a different turn? A turn where light shines in the darkness, where love conquers sin and death.